Episode 5, The Rose King. We open on Linfea, as a young Flora is taken by her father Rhodos to a special garden at the Marigold Institute, the Garden of Farewells. Given this is the planet of nature magic, the Linfeans believe in the inherent connection between all living things, and that when they die, they live on as part of the world. This garden represents that, being a sort of cemetery where natural burials are held, and the soil is cultivated into new flowers and trees to celebrate this eternal cycle. Rhodos shows Flora a particular rose tree, from which grows green, pearl, and peach-colored roses. Flora asks why her mother didn't want to come, and Rhodos explains that she doesn't like to talk about the story behind this tree. Flora asks why and who this tree is for, and Rhodos explains it's for the sister Flora never had the chance to meet. We then cut to the present, where Flora, along with the other Winx, are aboard the Hawk, the largest of the Red Fountain spacecrafts, as the specialists Naboo and Roy escort them to Cloudtower. Of course, Sky couldn't be here due to kingly duties on Heraklion, but Bloom is low-key grateful, since she's pretty sure seeing him right now might push her over the edge. At the very least, she's happy to be reunited with Kiko. Since this is our first time seeing most of the guys this season, we get some time to focus on their different reactions to the Winx losing their memories. Out of all of them, Naboo seems to be taking it the best, assessing the situation immediately, and bringing up that new Waves concert that they both went to. Of course, Aisha corrects Naboo on the lyrics when he gets them wrong, then mentions how she had to sneak out to that concert, which Naboo says, oh same, sharing how controlling his parents were as well. They're essentially bonding all over again, while Roy is freaking out about how Aisha's parents are gonna kill him for letting this happen. Riven, however, is upset as he tries to get Musa to remember him. He regrets saying he needed space, wishing he was there to protect her. This just confuses Musa. She's even put off by him, practically hearing the discord going on around him, and the empathic capabilities of her powers are literally giving her secondhand stress from Riven. Timmy, meanwhile, tries cracking jokes to break the awkwardness around Tekna, and they all just fly right over Tekna's head. Since Stella was already dating Brandon before the first season, she does still remember him, but as Prince Sky of Heraklion. So when she asks why Bloom is calling him Brandon, she and Brandon glance at each other like, we are so fucking screwed. Most of the focus, however, goes to Flora and Helia. Flora apologizes to Helia about not remembering anything, but Helia says that she has nothing to apologize for. He's just grateful that she's okay, and that no matter what, she's still the caring, strong-hearted woman that he loves. Flora is taken aback, given she's never really thought of herself as strong, but Helia assures Flora that she's the strongest person he's ever met. But Flora's not so sure she believes that just yet. After arriving at Cloudtower, which none of the other Winx are happy about given how creepy they find it, and they're still high off the anti-witch juice all Season 1 fairies were given, the Winx fill Griffin, Saladin, and the specialists in on what's happened. By which I mean Bloom explains what happened at Althea, though she can't remember the name of the spell that was used on her and the Winx, nor who cast it. The mention of the ancient fairy Clariel has both Griffin and Saladin curious, but they'll need to do some research to confirm their suspicions. In the meantime, all the Althea faculty and students are in grave danger, and the school itself has completely vanished. They can only assume that the Tricks are using it as their new base of operations, and it's only a matter of time before they strike again. Rumor even has it that they've already attacked Beta Academy on Solaria, and the Tricks are calling their new coven the Owls of Diamond, a name which apparently belongs to a forbidden remote moon on the edge of the magical universe. Bloom is incredibly worried about Farragonda, Roxy, and Macy, but Griffin says that worrying isn't going to do anyone any good right now. She's interested about the transformation the Great Dragon mentioned, and advises the Winx to focus on achieving this power to stand against the Tricks, and hopefully regain their memories. Griffin does mention they have a new ally to help them direct from Light Rock, and the top of his graduating class at Malakoi Academy on Korea, the planet of angelic light. She calls in Nex, a young paladin who studied under Professor Avalon. When he heard about what happened at Alfea, he rushed over to try and find a way to help his mentor. The group is thankful for all the help that they can get. The specialists need to return to Red Fountain with Saladin to keep watch over the school and Magic City, while Roy takes Naboo back to Andros. Nex jokes about how he hopes to see them all again, asking if the girls mind sharing their boyfriends for a bit. Riven and Roy are especially flustered, to which Nex simply winks, and Aisha and Naboo burst out laughing. We then cut to Alfea, where all the students of Alfea College and Beta Academy are forcibly gathered. The Tricks address them as the future witch queens of the magical universe. If the students pledge their loyalty to the Owls of Diamond, they will be given everything they've ever wanted. Otherwise, they'll be sent right back to their prisons. As an example of someone who's recently turned, Icy asks Chimera to step forth, and she transforms into her Dark Enchantix before saying it's time the Betas finally prove their power to the cowards of Alfea. This manages to convince most of the Beta Academy students to turn and pledge themselves, finding themselves given marks provided by Selena. The rest, including Roxy and Macy, are thrown back into the dungeon. Afterwards, Selena goes to her room to rest, but spots something on the floor. A drawing. She quickly realizes it's one Bloom must have left behind before she left. Selena simply says she's paying Bloom back, then flashes back to their first meeting in elementary school. While the other kids play with each other, Selena is content to sit by the school building and read by herself. Mitzi and her friends approach, making fun of Selena and calling her a nerd, before grabbing her book. Immediately, Bloom tells them to leave Selena alone. She grabs the book, only for some of the pages to tear. After Mitzi and her friends run off, Bloom apologizes for the damage to Selena's book, but Selena is just thankful Bloom was there to help. They introduce themselves, and when Bloom asks why Selena is alone, Selena explains she just likes keeping to herself. Bloom asks if Selena minds reading her book aloud to her, and Selena is more than happy to oblige. Her stroll down memory lane is interrupted as the Legendarium opens. Acheron is pleased with Selena's deception, especially in having the Tricks as recruits bearing his sigil. It'll make their plans down the road far easier. She quickly closes the book as Icy enters, saying that she was just practicing her incantations. Icy encourages Selena not to spend so much time lost in her books, saying there's no fun in taking over the universe if you can't enjoy some time with your coven. They head to Farragonda's office, where Darcy mentions how Clariel is currently down in the Hall of Enchantments, guarding her spell trove like a greedy dragon guards its treasure hoard, never bothering to ask what Selena or the Tricks' plan is. Anyhow, the Tricks have created a locator spell to find items that will satisfy the Witch Queen ritual. Their first target is a rose from the Garden of Farewells in the Marigold Institute on Linfea, which is connected to Flora. And luckily for them, they currently have a Linfean princess in their captivity. Back at Cloudtower, the Winx situate themselves in the Cloudtower dorms, but can't seem to shake the creepy atmosphere. Flora keeps trying to find the bright side, which everyone is annoyed by, but not as much by how Stella keeps critiquing the witch's interior design and need for faces on all the damn doors. Aisha is just freaked out by how dark the place is, admitting she's been scared of the dark since she was little. Music comforts her, thankfully, and Techna cites that a fear of the dark is quite common. Not that that helps. Bloom, meanwhile, abstains from conversation, saying that she needs to focus on looking through the Book of Fairies, to which Stella jokes about her seeming like a bigger nerd than Techna. Leafing through, Bloom finally comes to the page about Ardorix, a transformation of the dragon fairies of ancient Domino, harnessing the dragon flame in its most primordial form. It was apparently lost to the ages, though it said Ardorix has the potential to spark into the legendary power of fantasy. Her attention is called away as the girls argue over sharing their space. Flora, being a bit of a slob, leaves her things strewn over the room, and currently is trying to find places to grow plants for the place, much to the annoyance of everyone else by how much space they take up, especially when one begins speaking and another tries to eat Tecna. Bloom tries to play mediator, saying that it could help to liven up the place. It also reminds her of their first day at Alfea, when she accidentally stepped on a vine of one of Flora's talking plants. It was frightening, but Bloom was amazed Flora could create something so complex. Flora thanks her, but admits she's always been a slob. Her mother would always get on her case, trying to keep things clean and organized as possible. Remembering this clearly upsets Flora. At Red Fountain, meanwhile, Saladin has just finished an address to not only all the students, but professional specialists across the magical universe on the current threat. Helia asks his grandfather if he's alright, and Saladin assures him that it takes more than a speech to do him in. In any case, he addresses Brandon's squad along with Helia and Roy, saying that given their close bonds with the Winx, they'll need to support them in their fight to reclaim Alfea. But to do so, they'll need to step up their skills, especially with their former leader Sky no longer being a specialist. The mention clearly upsets the guys, though Saladin changes the subject quickly, saying that he asked Next to provide new armor and weapons from Lightrock. This armor will protect them from the darkness of the witch's magic, and their weapons have been bestowed with the powers of nature, courtesy of Marigold Institute. Next, of course, compliments Riven's appearance as well as Roy's, to which both of them are clearly flustered. Back at Cloudtower, the Winx are doing an exercise led by Professor Zarathustra, which Bloom is not keen on. They must channel and isolate their negative emotions and memories, as those are often the strongest even when repressed. No matter how painful or dark the feelings, the Winx must yield to their memories. We see glimpses of these memories, each a highlight reel of traumatic events experienced by each Winx over the course of the series. Bloom sees her powers being stolen by the Tricks, the revelation of Sky's identity, Valtor corrupting Sky, and the fake Avalon trapping her so Darkar could make her become Dark Bloom. Stella sees the Tricks holding her hostage for the Ring of Solaria, her nearly dying in the Underrealm from lack of sunlight, and her father ordering her arrest after being turned into a monster. Musa re-experiences her father's breakdown following her mother's death, hiding as he breaks every instrument in the house. This is followed by Darcy nearly crushing her with cars in Magic City, her being ganged up on by a bunch of witches and Riven letting it happen, her caught in a fire to save Galatea, and Riven nearly killing her in Obsidian. Tecna sees herself falling into the Omega Portal, struggling to survive on the frozen prison planet. Aisha sees herself being thrown from Darkar's castle, her being blinded by Valtor, and Naboo falling into a coma as Ogron enjoys her pain. The final vision we see, and the one we focus most on for right now, is Flora's. She sees all of the times that she's been hurt and nearly killed over the course of the show, with the strongest image going back to the Black Willow. However, while the others awaken, they find Flora is still in a trance. We then see a memory of Flora returning home, with her mother Alyssa waiting up for her, demanding to know where she's been. Flora says that she asked them if she could go to a friend's, to which Alyssa says Flora didn't pick up her phone when she called to check in on her, and now she's 15 minutes late. Backing down, Flora timidly apologizes, but Alyssa doesn't respond. Flora begs her mother to talk to her, but she simply won't, only glaring coldly before she walks away. A young Miele steps in, saying that Flora didn't do anything wrong, and Alyssa scolds Miele, telling her to watch her tone. Relenting, Flora simply goes to her room to cry. We then flash further back, this time of Flora as a young child overhears her parents talking nervously one night. Her mother Alyssa has fallen pregnant and expresses how terrified she is about potentially losing another child. Rhodos tries to assure her that everything is going to be okay, and no matter what happens, he will be here for her, as he hugs her tightly. Still, Alyssa can't help but worry and admits she still wonders what kind of person Rose would have grown up to be. As the others try to wake Flora up, we hear an abridged version of the Black Willow's story from the Sage of Linfea, focusing on the fact that its tears can reverse the flow of time. Flora finally snaps awake and says that she has to head home to Linfea immediately, alone. Bloom is against this, but the others argue as to why Bloom gets a say on that. Lucy nods, saying that she'll take Flora to the transport station in Magic City. We then cut to Marigold Institute on Lynphea, where Miele practices her magic with some friends out in the quad. Since she's heard what happened at Althea and been unable to reach Flora, she's focusing on her studies to distract herself. And of course, that's when her parents Alyssa and Rhodos arrive. Thankful Miele is okay and asking why she didn't answer their calls. Miele says that she was in class. Alyssa isn't happy at all about that explanation, asking Miele why she can't be more like Flora, and accusing her of avoiding her family since she started at Marigold. Miele argues back that her mother said the same thing about Flora leaving for Althea. Brushing Miele's call-out off, Alyssa demands that Miele come home until they can find out what happened to Flora, and Miele refuses. Suddenly, storm clouds roll over the school. The corrupted Althea appears in the sky, and as people try to figure out what's happening, we cut to the dungeons where the students are being kept. The Tricks call their attention and drag Crystal out of the cell, saying that she'll work fabulously for their attack on Marigold Institute. They plan on using her as a hostage, but Crystal says that she's been to the school plenty of times and knows its weaknesses. She can help them conquer it. The students are shocked, and Roxy is especially pissed, calling Crystal a traitor. Content, the Tricks decide to humor Crystal, and consider this a trial run for her. We then cut to Farragonda's office, where the Tricks and Crystal meet up with Selena and Chimera. Selena summons the Rose King, a powerful spirit said to protect the forests of Lynphea. It's believed by Lynpheans to protect the world's nature, and would be merciless in defending its environment. So much so, it's why most Lynpheans took to building their homes up in the trees, far from the forest floor. And now it's at the beck and call of Selena and the Tricks. Believing that the fairies and wizards here are the enemy of nature, the Rose King descends. Everyone is terrified. Headmistress Ishia, a powerful guru who oversees Marigold Institute, confronts the being. When she welcomes him, he scoffs, saying that he is no friend to Lynpheans. To him, humans, fairies, witches, and all the like are nothing more than pests and threats to the nature that he protects. And so, the Rose King casts a spell which turns the nature of the school against its students. He even enlists the tree ants, giant humanoid trees which are meant to guard the school, in his siege. At Cloudtower, the Winx get news of what's happening at Marigold from Griffin. Bloom asserts that they need to stop the Tricks, though the other Winx seem hesitant. While the Winx head off, Griffin says she'll call Brandon's squad and Nex for backup. Flora, meanwhile, arrives at the base of the mountain leading to the water stairway. Taking a breath, she heads inside. Episode 6: The Garden of Farewells. Flora arrives at the Cave of the Black Willow. Approaching, she speaks to the tree, saying that though she has lost her memories, some trace of them remains. She saw flashes of herself and her sister Miele here, and though the vision included her becoming a true fairy, it also scared her. She could feel herself slipping away, and she's scared of ever feeling that way again. She sits down and looks at the water, mentioning how the willow's tears are said to reverse the flow of time. But ironically, she doesn't remember a childhood she would want to go back to anyway. At Marigold Institute, meanwhile, the Linfeans aren't having much luck in battling the Trix' army. Any nature spells that the local fairies, witches, and wizards use are turned against them by the Rose King, not to mention the Treants are just plain immune to them. And with the numbers advantage the Owls of Diamond have from their Beta Academy recruits, it proves too much to overcome. With the tide in their favor, the Trix, Selena, Chimera, and Crystal descend. Though the Rose King isn't exactly happy to be under their sway, he does escort Selena and Crystal inside, with the Trix telling Selena to keep an eye on their little turncoat princess. Miele goes after them against her parents' wishes. In the corrupted Alfea, meanwhile, Roxy is looking for some kind of escape. Thankfully, Roxy has been able to make pals with some of the animals living in the walls of Alfea. The Magibeavers, along with the pixie animals and Concorda, reveal themselves to help break the spells holding the students and spring them all free. Roxy tries to free Faragonda and the professors, but they have even stronger spells keeping them locked up. At Faragonda's orders, Roxy leads the liberated Alfea students, and also Nut, who's low-key thankful the Trix have completely forgotten about him, out of the school to help Marigold Institute down below. Concorda is sad to leave the Magic Archive behind, but it's really the only option right now. The Winx finally arrive, but are confused when Flora isn't with her parents, given she'd already gone back home, which worries Rhodos and sends Alyssa into a fit. The Winx try to explain, only for Alyssa to tell them to stay out of their family's business, then complains about Flora spending all her time with these girls instead of with her family. In any case, the Winx hold off the Trix, though the Trix find it amusing that the Winx don't recognize them, which makes it easier to fight them. Like the good old days when they would crush the fairies as freshmen. Insert the Trix calling the Winx pixies, like in 4Kids. Chimera interrupts to target Stella, though when Stella doesn't recognize her, it makes Chimera even more furious. Inside the school, Selena, Crystal, and the Rose King reach the Garden of Farewells. They can't help but admire the beauty of one particular rose tree. Selena explains that she needs this tree for a ritual, which requires items representing deep pain of her enemies. Before she can figure out how to go about the extraction, the Rose King takes issue with this, asking if Selena plans to kill it. When Selena says she only needs one flower, the Rose King asks her what happens to a flower when it's plucked. Selena responds that it dies, asking, "So what?" Which is about the response the Rose King expected, but isn't keen on. Miele rushes in and becomes protective when she realizes the specific tree they're after. Unfortunately, Miele is unable to match Selena and Crystal's power. The Rose King is curious as to why Miele is so protective of this tree, and decides he's going to handle the job himself. Before anyone can react, the Rose King roots himself into the ground, and takes over the school from within as vines and plants grow uncontrollably all around. Selena attempts to send the Rose King back into the Legendarium, but it doesn't work, and she, Miele, and Crystal are all trapped in pods. Outside, everyone is being imprisoned by the pods and the Treants. Thankfully, Brandon's squad arrives in time, along with Roxy, Nut, and the fairies of Alfea. Together, they're able to start freeing everyone, including Flora's parents. To help matters, Alyssa has an idea on how to save the school. She's an expert botanist and potion master, and if they can get to the potion lab, she might be able to concoct something to stop the chaos. Healy escorts them through while the others hang back to fight the Treants. Unfortunately, Chimera's rage manages to break her free, and she continues attacking Stella, though the rest of the Winx thankfully are able to back her up. During this, Stella begins flashing back to the Princess Ball, where she was turned into a monster, and Chimera and her mother turned her father against her. Back at the water stairway, more memories begin to flow back into Flora's mind. Flora admits to the tree that she had another sister, one who was never born. Her family has hardly spoken of her, and Flora feels guilty for nearly forgetting her. Shortly after Miele was born, she fell ill, which sent the entire family into panic mode. After a healer and doctor leave the home, Alyssa simply cries beside Miele's crib, while Rhodos takes Flora aside to reassure her. Flora isn't sure if she believes her father. Rhodos admits that it's more complicated than they expected, but he still has faith things will be okay. Flora wishes she could do more, especially because she feels she has to make up for Rose not being here. Rhodos is heartbroken to hear this, saying that Flora has nothing to make up for. What happened was absolutely tragic, but In a way, it also eventually led to Rhodos and Alyssa being blessed with both Flora and Miele. He's just grateful to have them at all, and the last thing he wants is for either of his daughters to worry about things so out of any one person's control. Flora wants to check on her mother, and though Rhodos is hesitant, he agrees. When Flora approaches her mother, Alyssa at first doesn't respond. As Flora insists, Alyssa simply says she wants to be left alone. And when Flora hugs Alyssa and says that she loves her, Alyssa snaps and tells Flora to go to bed. Upset, Flora runs out and goes to her room, with Rhodos unsure of what to say. In the present, Flora asks why she has to remember these things. Why couldn't she forget these too? She then hears Miele calling out for her, snapping her back to reality. Using her magic, she taps into the natural world, and realizes her friends are in grave danger, and they need her help. As a guardian fairy of Linfea, she must do what she can for her world and her friends. Before she leaves, she thanks the Black Willow for listening. Elsewhere, Rhodos, Alyssa, and Helia reach the lab, where Alyssa immediately gets to work while Rhodos and Helia stand guard. Rhodos thanks him for the help, and Helia explains that he would do anything for Flora's parents. When he asks how he's close with Flora, Helia is confused, explaining that he's her boyfriend. That's when they realize Flora hasn't told her parents about Helia, even after all these years. Both are hurt, but Rhodos does admit that ever since Flora started school at Alfea and joined the Winx, she'd become more and more distant. Helia says that actually Flora's become far more confident and assertive through he and her friends' encouragement. She is the strongest, most loving and compassionate person he's ever met, and he assures Rhodos that Flora does love her family. She's told him so many stories about her parents and Miele. In any case, Rhodos is grateful that Flora has found such a wonderful person like Helia, and that they can sort this out with Flora later. To which Helia realizes, oh yeah, I have to explain the whole amnesia thing to them too. But that actually makes him realize that Alyssa could potentially fix this via her potions. Back in the garden, Acheron communicates with Selena via the Legendarium, calling her a fool for letting things get out of hand. He explains that ordinarily, a character cannot be forced back into the Legendarium world if they choose to stay. She must utter the words, "From legends and tales comes the power of strife," in order to ensure the character bears Acheron's crest, keeping it under his influence. He then tells Selena to use the fires of Phlegethon to escape. The Rose King takes notice, but Selena's illusions allow her to escape while grabbing a single pearl rose from the tree for the ritual. Once she gets outside, she spots the Tricks imprisoned in pods. She frees Darcy and Stormy, apologizing for things getting so out of hand. They're not too keen on humoring her, though. But when they move to free Icy, the Rose King creates a giant Venus flytrap to finish her off. While Darcy and Stormy hold off the treants, Selena dives in and calls upon Phlegethon once again to protect both her and Icy from the magical acid around them. They manage to destroy the flytrap from within. The Tricks are surprised by Selena's actions, especially Icy, but Selena reminds them that they're all partners and they need each other for their plan to work. Once Bloom spots the Tricks having escaped, she yells out to Selena, asking why she's doing all of this. Selena backs off, and Icy says that Selena simply decided that Bloom's self-righteousness was too maddening to deal with. Shortly after, deeming the Rose King too dangerous to deal with, Icy orders her coven to retreat, and they all return to Alfea. It's during this, however, that Nex arrives and catches sight of Darcy, freezing up. Darcy looks back and spots him, then looking hesitant, follows her sisters. Princess Crystal emerges as well, holding onto several scrolls before flying to Alfea, looking sadly back at Marigold. Flora's parents, meanwhile, arrive with Helia, using their potions to free the students and faculty from the pods. Though they do succeed, the Rose King, infuriated, captures Alyssa and Rhodos, then reveals a captured Miele in another pod. Flora arrives just in time, thankfully, and uses her return to nature spell to free her family and dissolve the remaining pods. The treants, however, remain standing, and the Rose King is maddened even further. He recognizes Flora as a guardian fairy and is disgusted by her alleged betrayal of the natural world. Frustrated, the Rose King resorts to drastic measures. Poisonous fungi. A wave of toxic spores is unleashed, with everyone trying to cover their mouths, falling to the ground and heaving. Flora's family rushes to each other's sides. Alyssa begs her daughters to fight with all of their strength. As Flora struggles to remain conscious, she recalls one last memory. The same night her mother snapped at her, Alyssa came into Flora's room later to check on her before bed, though Flora pretended to be asleep. Regardless, Alyssa still apologized for how she acted. She says the month leading up to Flora's birth, the weather was all gray skies, and the excess rain had threatened to kill all her most beloved flowers. But the day before Flora was born, the sun finally broke through the clouds, and all the roses bloomed, as if welcoming her into the world. Alyssa says that even though she's been through so much loss, it also makes her more grateful for what she does have, both Flora and Miele. Flora jumps up and hugs her mother. That's when they hear something. Miele crying, when she'd been quiet all throughout her illness. When they go to check on her, they find that the color has returned to her face, and her fever is gone. She's seemingly better, and out of relief, the young family huddles together, crying tears of joy. Cutting back to the present, Flora tries to stand, though when Alyssa tries to make her rest, Flora insists that she has to do something. She addresses the Rose King directly, saying that all life is part of nature. Like the Rose King is doing what he believes will protect nature, Flora will do whatever it does to protect life. This poison she's been afflicted with is nothing compared to what her family has suffered. They have survived so much loss, and Flora isn't about to lose anyone else. The Rose King is touched by Flora's sentiment, and as such, decides such courage should be preserved rather than left to die. He casts an ancient hibernation spell, transforming Flora into a tree, which horrifies everyone. Fortunately, it's at that moment Flora's dragon flame crystal reveals itself, beginning to glow. Pink flames set the tree ablaze. Impulsively, the Rose King sends even more toxic spores at the flame, but the fire burns them all away. As the fire clears, Flora is revealed to have been returned to normal, and the spark ignites. Flora has earned Ardorix. With her new power, she casts an old favorite spell with a new twist, Return to Nature, which now manifests as a pink flame racing across Marigold Institute, pushing the vines back, freeing everyone, and returning the tree ants to their slumber. The Rose King steps back. He's in awe. As the protector of nature, he's meant to protect life from what would seek its destruction. But Flora says that all life is part of nature. All living things are connected, and though some may harm each other, that too is part of life. The most any one person can do is to protect and preserve life, and work to help as many thrive and coexist in harmony as possible. Though the Rose King still isn't entirely fond of the Linfeans, he admits he has a newfound respect for Flora and her family. He agrees to stand down, and before he goes, he promises that if he sees Rose, or rather, her spirit, in the realm of nature, he'll look after her. And with that, he melts away into the earth, and everyone takes a massive sigh of relief as they see that the rose tree is still standing. Some rose petals are left behind, which Flora sweeps into her fairy dust bottle, saying that it's her promise to protect nature on his behalf. We cut back to Alfea, where the Tricks are infuriated by how many of their prisoners have escaped. At the very least, the rose Selena took satisfies the Legendarium, meaning they're on track for the ritual. And on top of that, to prove herself, Crystal stole some high-level scrolls from the Linfean vault, allowing the Tricks to harness some of Linfea's nature magic. Icy thanks Selena for saving her, but warns her to be careful of whatever else she summons in the future. Selena jokes that she'll be sure to finish her readings for the next lecture. As the Tricks go to rest up, Acheron chews Selena out for endangering the Legendarium just to save a worthless witch. Selena apologizes, but tries to argue that all of the Tricks are instrumental in achieving their goals. Though he's still furious, Acheron half-heartedly apologizes, then reminds her to use the binding incantation he mentioned earlier when summoning. Before Selena can thank him for the advice, Acheron pieces out and closes the Legendarium himself, leaving Selena visibly upset. Back in Marigold Institute, Bloom is happy to see that Roxy and Macy are okay. Stella is clearly still terrified, asking if this is just normal for all of them, to which Bloom goes, more or less, yeah. As Helia, Flora, and her family head into the quad, the Winx are in awe of Flora's Ardorix. She doesn't seem to be affected by the poison anymore, and Bloom guesses that she must have been cured by the healing flame of life when she got Ardorix. When they ask how she got the form, Flora looks to her family and says it involved confronting something that she had kept buried for a long time. She still doesn't have her memories of Alfea back, but she's certain that they're on the right track. She's also sure that they're not gone fully. Something is just blocking them still. In any case, The school has been saved, but no one really knows why the Tricks attacked, aside from stealing a few spells from the vault. While the rest of the Winx decide to head back to Cloudtower with all the Alfea students, Flora elects to stay back a while and spend the night with her family so that they can all talk. Healy asks if she wants him to stay with her, but Flora says that it's important she talks to her family alone. That night, everyone is excited for Rhodo's cooking. Mealy congratulates Flora on becoming even stronger and saving Marigold Institute, but Flora insists that their whole family saved the day together. Rhodos jokes that they had some help from Flora's friends, the Winx, along with her boyfriend, to which Alyssa does a spit take since she still doesn't know about Helia. Mealy sinks in her seat, swearing that she didn't tell them, but Flora says because of the memory spell cast on her, she didn't even remember she had a boyfriend for a while. Alyssa asks how much Flora does remember, and Flora confirms that she has all of her memories up until her first day at Alfea when she met her friends. As such, leaving for Magix feels like it was just yesterday, and she was admittedly excited to finally leave home and stand on her own. Alyssa apologizes for making Flora feel the way that she did, but Flora says that they were all just trying to deal with an unimaginable pain the best that they all could. Flora suggests that once the current crisis is overcome, that the family go to therapy so that they can talk out all of their feelings that they've kept bottled up for so long. They all agree, and Alyssa promises she'll get to work on potions that could potentially undo the amnesia affecting Flora and her friends. After all, she's desperate to hear first-hand stories all about the Winx's adventures, and most definitely to hear more about this Helia boy. The family laughs, and we fade out as we focus on a family photo of them all nearby.